Hello everyone, so welcome to yet another episode of Polity Quick Revision series. So in this video, we'll talk about the legislative procedure that is employed in Parliament. So here we'll take a look at the different kinds of bills. Money bills, ordinary bills, financial bills, constitutional amendment bills, and what are the differences between these different bills. We'll also take a look at the different stages that a bill has to pass through in order to become an act, and so on and so forth. So without any further delay, let's get started. Okay, generally there'll be questions on these matters. Okay, so just be clear with this. Another important thing is, where's my pen? Legislative procedure in the parliament. So the legislative procedure is identical in both houses of the parliament. Each bill has to pass through the same stages in each house. The bill is a proposal for legislation and becomes an act when it is duly enacted. That is House 1 to House 2 to your president. Okay, and then again, if one of them if there is a deadlock, you guys know the drill. Okay, now you can have public bills or you can have private bills. Okay, or government bills and private member bills. Okay, we just talked about this. An important sort of a distinction that you have to understand is your ordinary bill and your money bill. Okay, ordinary bill versus your money bill. Okay, this is an important sort of a distinction. Okay, so just remember that. There is something called financial bill, not as important as money bill, but these are bills that deal with financial matters, but they are slightly different from your money bill. Money bill basically has anything that is to do with Article 110. Okay, and the elements that are the kind of features that I've mentioned in that. Okay, that will be your article. That will be your money bill. Apart from that, anything that deals with financial matters, but not necessarily with Article 110 specifically, is going to be your financial bill. Okay, leave that. But constitutional amendment bills are also sort of important. Okay, they are also sort of important, and this is something that we covered in chapter number something, constitutional amendment, the chapter before your basic structure doctrine. Do you guys remember that? What are the different ways in which you can amend the constitutional amendment? What are the different ways?
Simple majority.
Can you give me an example? One second. Can you mention an example, Aishwarya, for simple majority? Not to put you on the spot, but in case you want to, or you can.
Fifth and sixth schedule, if you want to make any changes in fifth or sixth schedule.
Excellent, that is your simple majority. Okay, next.
Special majority, fundamental rights and DPA space.
Excellent. Okay, and then third one.
Special majority plus ratification of half of the states.
Okay, half of the states. Okay, perfect. And can you mention an example here?
Seventh schedule.
Seventh schedule. Okay, any of the lists that I mentioned in the seventh schedule. Okay, perfect. Great. I'm actually quite happy that you can answer even the examples under that, right? That's the reason why I said that if you can, then great, because you started with what are the three different ones, and then I add on more questions in it. So I didn't want to sort of bombard you with more questions. But anyways, you've done excellent. Okay, having said that, let's take a look at the first reading, second reading, third reading. Okay, given in quite a decent amount of detail in your book. Okay, if there are questions on this, I don't think you can sort of be confused, or you would not be. Okay, Laxmikanth does a very good job about this. A notary bill can be introduced in either house of the parliament, right? And the member who wants to introduce the bill has to ask for the leave of the house, meaning that's the way it is in which it is introduced. When the house grants that leave, as in to introduce the bill, the mover of the bill introduces it by reading the title, the objectives, right? Here, there will be no discussion. Introduction means a few things. Okay, reading what is the title, transgender welfare bill. Okay, what is the objective? I want to provide some sort of benefits to them. I want to define the eligibility, and I want to provide protection or penalties for people who sort of mess with their rights. Okay, no discussion. It is just about the fact that, okay, what are the bills? No discussion on this thing generally takes place, but then it is considered to be introduced when it is published in the Gazette of India. Okay, in the Gazette of India. Okay, so that is that. Let's take a look at private member bill and public bill. Okay, and before that, just take a look at this. So this is a news clipping. Okay, news clipping. By the way, do you guys read newspaper online, or do you get the physical copy? How do you do your current affairs, guys?
Physical copy.
Physical copy. Do you like underline in it, or do you make those newspaper clippings, or do you just stick with your monthly booklets from different institutes?
Yeah, the monthly booklets.
Monthly booklets. Okay. But generally, I would also suggest that if possible, this is something that I do. Okay, it is something that I do. For instance, in my table, if I just take a look, you guys can hear me as well. There are many of these newspaper clippings that I've cut. Okay, and I still haven't organized them. Okay, and I have a particular, I don't know what this is called. This is like a pouch. It's not a pouch. It's like a file. It's like a file, whatever it is. Okay, it's like a file. I wonder what it's called. Okay, but it has these like pockets for like different papers that I want to keep in them. So I have GS1 ka ek section, there is GS2 ka another section, GS3 ka another section, and I keep these. And later on, especially when I want to write, for instance, if it's my anthro, okay, and I teach anthro, right? So for that, whatever case studies I have, I generally keep those clippings, and I discuss this in class. I just have it highlighted. And similarly, why do I mention this? Is that, so for instance, one of these things, one of the headlines is worsening gender gap worry. Okay, and this is a editorial, right? Similarly, act on report to stop custodial violence, right? These are some of these things with, if I find them to be either they have some sort of visual like this, which probably helps me, or if they have some sort of good examples, reports or something, I just just file it in this one, and it can come in handy later, especially when I'm doing my mains. Okay, because specific examples are something that these booklets will not have, so that could be useful. But again, if this is what do you want to do this right now, 70 days before or 69 days before your prelims, now that is up to you. Okay, you just use your best judgment. Okay, but these sort of things generally, I've noticed that this, when I see things like this, it goes into my mains a lot easier. Okay, these are things that are brought into my paper. See, for instance, a move by DMK MP Trichy Siva. Okay, it sought equal rights and dignity for transgender. Right, and when people talk about private members bill, maybe this will not strike you. Okay, but because I have these clippings and I've seen this multiple times, it comes in handy for me. Okay, it comes in handy for me. How many such bills have been passed by both the houses? Any guesses? Okay, in our entire 1947, say, or I guess general election was 1952, 1952 onwards, all the way till 2021, we have only 14 such acts, okay, that have come about. And in fact, even here, the last one was in 1970. Okay, the last one was in 1970. Supreme Court Enlargement of Criminal Appellate Jurisdiction Bill, which was passed in 1970. Okay, which was passed in 1970. So I hope that gives you some sort of a context. Okay, now see, 343 such bills were introduced, only a few were selected, and these will be probably some important MPs, or maybe some of those issues that are of importance during that particular 5-year period. Okay, 2004 to 2009, who was the Prime Minister here? Manmohan Singh. 2009 to 2014, Manmohan Singh. Right here, there's Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Okay, so very few. It does not matter which government is in power. Private member bills generally do not make it. Till now, only 14 private member bills have been passed by the Parliament. Okay, now what is the difference? See, this one is introduced by a minister. Right, this is anybody but a minister. Okay, Minister Prime. Okay, anybody other than minister. Okay, and it reflects the policies of the government, and it reflects the stand of the opposition party, possibly. Okay, it has a greater chance of being approved by the Parliament. Okay, and this has a lesser chance, and that is why how many have been passed? Only 14. Okay, and its rejection, okay, amounts to an expression of want of parliamentary confidence in the government. Okay, now this is if it is an ordinary sort of a bill. Okay, if it's a money bill that is getting rejected, then it could possibly result in falling of the government. But here it means, hey, how come the government cannot even pass its own bill? Maybe there is not enough confidence in the Lok Sabha for them, right? So maybe we should go for a no confidence motion and see whether it is they actually have that confidence. Okay, and it is introduced. Okay, that has 7 days. It requires 1 month notice. So basically, it is a little harder to bring many of these bills into for introduction, and it is drafted. Now, for making a bill by the government, you have proper sort of help. Okay, so you have consultation with the law department that will help you make these bills. Okay, and many of these things are sort of available on the internet as well, right? Because one thing that you will notice is that they will open it up for public opinion. And when it is up for public opinion, you'll be able to download it, you'll be able to see it, okay, you'll be able to read it, okay, and then in case you can sort of in whatever portal that they're asking, you can provide your own inputs. For instance, national education policy or something that is not a bill, but let us say that something like that. Okay, this is the draft. What do you guys think? Okay, or let us say that there is a new tribal policy or something like that. If we come, okay, what do the people say? Then you will have your activists, you'll have your experts, you'll have your sociologists, you'll have your anthropologists who have worked and have done field work along with the tribals, and they understand those situations better. They will probably provide their inputs, and that could come back and sort of be factored into the newer sort of a draft of the particular bill. Okay. So that is your first reading. What happens in the second reading? Second reading is relatively the more important reading. Now, just to give you a structure here, see, can you see this A? The general discussion, the committee stage, and then you have the consideration stage. So in the second reading, you generally see that not only the introduction, but post this, you have the scrutiny of the bill taking place. We saw some examples yesterday, right? I said that, okay, so what if, the transgender, the way I have defined it, let us say that I was the one who introduced the bill, okay? And in the eligibility, the way I defined it is completely biological. And let us say some of you are a lot more sort of, the woke elements of society. And you say that, no, it cannot be just biological. It could be also, psychological. It has to be, you have to factor in many other things for eligibility. So what happens here? So that is why you need a scrutiny of those bills. So this happens during the general discussion. So the copies of the bill are distributed to all the members, and the principles behind the bill, the elements of the bill, okay, and its provisions are discussed generally, but the details of the bills are not discussed in detail. Okay, at this stage, the House can take up any of the 4 following actions. Okay, 4 following actions. And what are they? Okay, you're like, okay, this looks good. Why don't we just go ahead and take it for consideration right away? Some would say, let's take it to a select committee. Okay, we'll make a committee out of it. So we'll appoint a committee that can go into this thing and then provide us with some inputs about the pros and cons of this bill, what could be changed or what should be changed. And then sometimes it could be a joint committee of the 2 houses. So you have members both from your Lok Sabha and also from your Rajya Sabha. Okay, and then it could also be eliciting public opinion. Okay, and especially for matters that relate a little more to where there is a lot of public interest or activism, or a lot more of, let us say, media scrutiny. In those sort of situations, it is better to sort of elicit the public opinion. Okay, in case you want to bring something for the teachers, okay, teachers association or something like that, pension related things. Okay, if you open it for public opinion, they will tell you, no, this is not going to work out because of so and so. We are going to be in the losing end, right? So these sort of things will happen. Okay, once it goes to the committee stage, the usual practice is to refer the bill to the select committee of the House. Okay, or sometimes it could be a joint committee. The committee examines the bill thoroughly and in detail, and in this stage it will be clause by clause. So read that. Okay, so if I'm just going to underline this, clause by clause. Okay, and what happened here? The details of the bill are not discussed, so no details. Okay, what are you discussing? The basic principles behind it, some basic provisions behind it. Here it is clause by clause. Okay, it is also, it can also amend the provisions without altering the principles underlying it. Okay, so maybe it'll add some, some features that are more important, or sort of fine tune it, okay, tweak it as required. And in the consideration stage, the House, after receiving the bill from the select committee, it will consider the provisions of the bill clause by clause at this particular point. Okay, and each clause is discussed and it is voted upon separately. And in voting also, you guys know what are the different ways of voting, right? What are the different ways? Can you give me some examples? Kangaroo, compartments. Okay, you guys know, right? Okay, and the members can move amendments, and if accepted, they become part of the bill. In fact, I think it is better if you can watch one sort of bill discussion in at least one house. It'll make this entire process relatively, it is actually quite simple. Okay, it just seems sort of complicated process in the beginning. Okay, it seems a little complicated in the beginning, but eventually you'll realize, okay, so this is the way you go about doing things. Okay, this is the way you go about doing things. By the way, are you guys aware of something called DRSC? Departmentally related standing committees. It will be towards the end of your chapter, but this makes a good sense. I mean, it makes sort of sense to talk about this DRSC right now. Departmentally related standing committees. Can anybody tell me, or anybody possibly guess what could be the function of the departmentally related standing committees? Okay, no worries. So you have something called the departmentally related standing committees, or the DRSCs. Now, this was introduced, I believe the exact year was 1993, 93 or 94, 93, I believe. Okay. And at that time, they had sort of set up 17 departmentally related standing committees. Now, at the moment now, the number of standing committees have increased since 1993. The 17 has become 24 in the last time I checked. Okay. And here also, you have some committees that work under the direction of the chairman, okay, of Rajya Sabha. Some of the committees work under the direction of the speaker of Lok Sabha. Now, what are the functions of these committees? The function of these committees is to examine the bills introduced in either house. Examine in, let us say, Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Okay, and who refers them? Okay, this could be chairman of Rajya Sabha, or it could be speaker of Lok Sabha. Now, see, the reports of these standing committees are sort of important. Okay, they have a lot of persuasive value. Let's just say that, okay, because it's not binding. But in case the government accepts any of the recommendation that is made by these committees, okay, the 17 of these committees, or 24 of these committees now, right, it may bring forward proper official amendments at the next stage, which is your consideration stage. So are you guys getting the big picture? So committee stage, departmentally related standing committees, and from this particular stage to consideration stage. Now, whatever reports or amendments these guys have suggested, if the government goes ahead and accepts any of these recommendations, you're going to see this, and it is going to be considered at the consideration stage of the bill. Okay, I had some other sort of things that I thought I could discuss. I think it will be an opportune moment to talk about them here, but let's just finish the third reading as well. See, at this particular stage, what happens is that the debate is confined to whether we are going to be like a yes or no. That is the whole point here. Yes or no. Okay, Haley that. Okay, yes or no. Okay, that's all we want to know. And for that, so the debate is confined to acceptance or rejection here, because all the other things we've been doing in your second stage. First stage may you introduce, second stage may you went through the whole process of accepting or rejecting, or clause by clause sort of discussion. Now here we are accepting or rejecting it here. Okay, so the bill as a whole, and no amendments are allowed, because all of that is already done. Okay, let's not try to do anything more here. And as the general principles underlying the bills have already been sort of scrutinized in the second reading, if the majority of the members, depending upon whether it is what kind of a majority is required for that particular bill, okay, the bill, if it is passed by the House in that majority, then it is considered as passed by the House. Okay, then it is considered as passed by the House. Okay, thereafter, the bill is authenticated by the presiding officer, transmitted to the second house, and the bill is deemed to have been passed by the parliament only when House 1, okay, House 1 to House 2, and then goes to President. Okay, so what is the most important or time consuming stage? Where does a lot of action take place? Which stage is, okay, action packed?
First stage.
I heard the first stage. What happens in the first stage? See, first stage is
It's just
generally,
introduction.
yeah, first stage is generally introduction. Okay, the stage where there is a lot of action taking place. Okay, obviously it's not going to be phrased like this, but where most of the detailed scrutiny is going to take place, that stage is your second stage. Third stage it is only going to be whether we're accepting or rejecting. Basically, it's about voting it. Okay, first stage is only about introduction. How do you introduce? Okay, gazette notification, things like that. Okay, so the most important stage or the most time consuming stage or the most action packed stage is going to be your second stage. Now that we've passed it in your house 1, it has been transmitted to your house 2. What happens in house 2? So the bill, okay, it goes through the 3 stages: first reading, second reading, third reading. Okay, and there are again 4 alternatives here. Okay, the 4 alternatives. What are the 4 alternatives? Okay, you may pass the bill as it is, okay, without any amendments. Sometimes you may pass the bill, but you have said eligibility criteria has to be so and so. Okay, you made some amendment to it. Okay, and then another option is that you are like, no, this bill does not make any sense, I'm going to reject it. And then finally, you can even have a choice of not taking any action. Okay, and what happens if you do not take any action for 6 months?
Joint sitting will be there.
And do we always have a joint sitting? If we can say if 6 months nothing has been done, that we can say a deadlock. Okay, a deadlock. And then in order to sort of resolve that deadlock, the president can summon. Okay, it does not mean he shall summon or he has to summon. Okay, he can summon a joint sitting if the the bill is sort of very important and it sort of makes sense to go ahead with it and get it resolved ASAP. Okay, so the majority of the members present and voting in the joint sitting approve the bill. The bill is deemed to have been passed by both the houses. Joint sitting may, can you please tell me who chairs this meeting?
Speaker of
Speaker of Lok Sabha. Okay, excellent. Okay, great. So some bills have actually gone through this particular process. Okay, they've actually gone through this particular process. Okay, and some of those examples are given in your Laxmikanth as well. Okay, you can go through those examples. They're not going to quiz you on it, but just for your own sort of understanding. Okay, or your ability to make some connect with it. And then, so far, what have we done? We have passed it in house 1, we passed it in house 2. Then, then what happens after that?
President's assent.
President's assent. Now, again, how many options does the president have?
3.
Well, if I ask you that question, you should, have a counter question. It depends on which bill, right? Are we talking about an ordinary bill? Are we talking about a money bill? Okay, if it's an ordinary bill, obviously the options are going to be 3. And I think it was Manvi or Aishwarya, right? But what if it's a money bill?
Only 2 options.
Only 2 options.
So it could be 2 options or it could be 3 options. Okay, 3 options is when you have ordinary bills. Okay, and 2 options when it is a money bill. When it's a money bill. Okay. And generally money bill, I think it was Priya's question the other day when she had asked, what is the role of the president in when it comes to a money bill? He can give his assent, he can withhold his assent, but he cannot he cannot return the bill for reconsideration. But generally, what does the president do according to Laxmikanth?
He'll give his assent.
Because
It is introduced on the recommendation of the president.
Okay, so just be very clear with all of these things. Okay, just be very clear. So what you know and in what detail you know, and the fact that when I'm cross questioning you all of these things, you seem to be doing quite well. Okay, if the same level of clarity you can maintain all the way until the exam day, polity is going to work out really well for you. Okay, polity, again, polity is one of the simplest ones to score, sort of a favorite subject. Article 110 is the one that deals with your money bill. Okay, in that, what you have, basically it deals with imposition, abolition, all of these things of tax. Okay, or whether if it's dealing with regulation of borrowing of money in the by the union government. Okay, consolidative fund of India, okay, CFI, and then you have contingency fund of India, or the money that goes into it or the money that is withdrawn from it. Okay, all of that. Okay, so I'm going to put a CFI. This is about borrowing. Okay, and this is about tax related issues. I hope you get the point. Appropriation of money. How do you take out money from the consolidated fund of India for any reason? Okay, declaration of any expenditure charged. Okay, this is also good. What is expenditure charged? Expenditure charged versus there is another one as well. Okay, can you tell me what is expenditure charged? Anybody? Basically, expenditure charged. Okay, and you will see what are the ones that come under this in this particular chapter. Okay, this means that it is not subject to vote by Parliament or your assembly, whatever it is. Okay, so this is called charged on the consolidated fund of the state, or charged on the consolidated fund of the country. Okay, and why do you have this? For instance, let us say that it is a Supreme Court or somebody, or the election commissioner, one of their sort of salary related issues. Okay, now in order to maintain their independence, okay, now this is now going to be brought in the Parliament. Okay, this is now going to be subject to vote. Okay, so they have some systems like that to ensure that there is a certain amount of independence. So things like that, 110. Okay, so just remember anything that is in 110. Okay, a financial bill will be some bills that are, not, it's money bill, but not dealing with the matters that are clearly mentioned here. Okay, a bill is not seen to be a money bill for the reason that imposition of some fines, demand of payment of fees, imposition of, regulation of tax by local authorities, these kinds of things. Okay, these sort of things. Now tell me, where can a money bill be introduced?
Lok Sabha.
Can only be introduced in Lok Sabha. Only in Lok Sabha? Perfect. Okay, it can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha. Does it require president permission? Answer is yes. Okay, answer is yes. Okay, Priya had asked that question the other day, right? Money bill, pocket veto, that related question. Just try to remember this thing. Okay, it can only be on the recommendation of the president, or president recommendation. Let's put it like this. Okay, because we want to go with the exact wordings that are given in our book. Okay, because that is how, pretty much how your, your question options will also be sort of worded. Okay, and can it be introduced? Who can introduce it? Private member?
Minister.
Only a minister. Okay, so these are the important elements here. Now let us say that the Lok Sabha has passed it. What are the things? Sorry, the Lok Sabha has passed it. Role of Rajya Sabha in money bills. What can the Rajya Sabha do?
Can only make recommendations with regard to it.
Accept, reject, and what did you say? Make recommendation. Okay, some recommendations. Okay, so you're saying no accepting, or they can accept it?
They can accept it or make certain recommendation, but it's not going to matter.
It is not going to matter. Okay, so it can only make some recommendations. Okay, and must return the bill within 14 days. What happens if they do not send it back within 14 days?
It is deemed to have been passed by both houses.
Yes, the bill, regardless of whether it is passed or not, it is deemed to have been passed by both the houses. Okay, in the form originally passed by the Lok Sabha. Okay, originally passed by the Lok Sabha. Can you tell me a bill that was considered to be a money bill, and then that was sort of a controversial sort of a statement, or that was sort of a controversial event? If you remember, we talked about the fact that the current government, okay, with the executive, okay, they have majority in Lok Sabha. Do they have a majority in Rajya Sabha?
No.
They do not have majority in Rajya Sabha. So what happens is, if you're trying to pass legislation, can you get it passed if every member, okay, you guys know what is a whip? A party whip?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there is one member in the party that is going to say that, hey, you've got to sort of, fall in line and vote according to the party stance. Okay, so it is not your individual opinion. It is not probably your constituency's opinion. It is the party's opinion, because the party has been voted to power based on whatever we have said in that manifesto, and that is in line with this particular position. So you guys all have to vote in that manner. If that is the case, in every party is going to vote according to what the party is going to suggest. So that means you will never have bills of the government passing through Rajya Sabha. And if you want to bring in some important sort of measures, then that could get stalled. So Aadhaar was sent in as a Aadhaar related bill. Okay, that was sent in as a money bill. And you guys are welcome to sort of YouTube this. You had a lot of sort of criticism regarding this. Okay, Jairam Ramesh. Jairam Ramesh is from Karnataka. You guys know that, right? He was in Rajya Sabha at that time. He's a prolific author as well. He writes some, I've read one of his books on environment. He does a fabulous job. Okay, he's an intellectual, right? So things like that. So if that is the case, what happened is the Lok Sabha can pass it. The Rajya Sabha, while you can talk about it, you can criticize it, you can, but at the end of the day, it is about 14 days. And that's it. I'm going to get it passed. Okay, I'm going to get it passed. And then what is the role of the president here? The president's role is going to be, you can do accept, withhold, or reject, okay, but not return. Okay, and not return. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Generally, see, this ordinary bill versus money bill, okay, and how it works in the parliament versus how it works in state legislature are very, very, very important sort of topics. Okay, you've got to have this clarity. It could be that you tend to forget some aspects of this. If there are some things that you're going to forget, write down what are the things that you're going to forget. It could be things like, what is the president's permission when it comes to, or the president's sort of a role when it comes to ordinary bills? What are the president's role when it comes to constitutional amendment bills, when it comes to money bills, right? Or it could be, whatever it is, okay? So you guys try to see what exactly is it that you're going to have trouble with, make a note of it, and then keep revisiting, or have somebody who will sort of quiz you on those time and again, okay? Multiple times. And that strategy works, okay? And I think I've mentioned that multiple times, right? More frequent sort of revisits are going to help, keep things in your head for much longer. In history or in polity, you have those bills, right? 1773, 1784, I guess 1793, 1813, 33, 53, okay, 61, 91 or 92, right? 1909, 1919, and a whole lot of things after that as well, right? How do you remember that? I generally do that frequent revisits. Okay, I try to quiz myself multiple times so that I never ever get confused with this. Okay, this is Pitt's India Act. Of course, it is Pitt's India Act. Okay, that is 1813 only, not 1833. Sometimes you'll be like, hey, it was in the top right portion of that page. I'm not sure. Was it 1813, 1833? I'm not sure. Is it 1, 2, and 4? Is it 1, 2, 3, and 4? You will never have that. Okay, and that the trick is more frequent revisits. What you do, just ensure that you go through it multiple times, that what you know it really, really well. Okay, just a suggestion. Okay, it's better to be good at certain areas, done really well in the 6-9 days, rather than going in half-baked in all 100 questions. Okay, just a suggestion. Okay, so ordinary bill and money bill. Okay, it can be introduced by either house, the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. It can be introduced only in Lok Sabha and not in Rajya Sabha. Okay, and this is only by a minister. This is okay, anybody, including a private member. Okay, no need for the recommendation of the president, and here only on the recommendation of the president. Okay, it can be amended by the Rajya Sabha. Okay, it cannot be cannot be amended. So this is about Rajya Sabha. Okay, it cannot be amended, it cannot be rejected, and then you have supposed to give your recommendations, which may be accepted, which may not be accepted. But for this, you have a total period of 14 days only. Whereas in this one, you have a total period of 6 months. If 6 months have gone and you've not been able to get it resolved, what is the technical term that we use here? Parliamentary term. Okay. And again, it does not require the certification of the speaker, and this requires certification of the speaker. Okay. So these are all clear, right? Okay, this part we have not discussed. If if it gets defeated, it's not a big deal. The government could possibly fall. But however, okay, if your money bill, okay, you cannot get your money bill passed, then that is going to result in it leads to the resignation of the government. Okay, so I hope all of these sort of aspects are clear. Okay, the next topic that I have is joint sitting, but I feel you guys are quite comfortable with joint sitting. You don't seem to have much trouble in answering the questions, despite the fact that I keep trying to sort of, tricking you into it. Can you pass amendments during your joint sitting? Sorry guys about my handwriting. I think it's getting a little worse than its usual. Bad handwriting is getting today a little worse than my bad handwriting. Okay, so amendments during joint sitting. Possible, not possible? Any take on this?
It's not possible.
It is not possible except for 2 cases. Okay, except in 2 cases. It's a good answer, but except there are 2 exceptions, right? Generally, we look at the exceptions. 80% is the same, 20% is different. We say that, right? So what is the 20% that we need to remember that? Similarly, here, let's take a look at the cases in which we can have these amendments. See, if the final sort of a tipping point, okay, or the final sort of a deal breaker, okay, that if we can sort of amend that, okay, and then we'll be able to sort of resolve that difference. Okay, let us say that I say eligibility so and so, you say eligibility so and so. Can I come halfway and you can come halfway? Can we meet somewhere in the middle? Right? That's how you resolve. Even let's say that you have an issue with one of your classmates, getting along with each other. What do? You do not expect a sorry from the other person, right? Then that person's ego is going to be hurt. What do? You go halfway, that person comes halfway, and then you sort of shake hands, right? That seems, is that logical? Right? So the same thing you can apply here. There is final deal breaker. Uske liye what is it? Let's try to see if this is okay. If I make an amendment like this, would you be okay with this? Lok Sabha, are you going to be okay with this? Rajya Sabha, are you going to be okay with this? If yes, then great. And those amendments that might be necessary due to the delay in the passage. So again, the same thing. These are the amendments that have resulted in the delay limit and the state legislate. 80% of these things are the same. It can be introduced. Okay, we are talking about vis-a-vis the ordinary bills. Okay, it can be introduced in the parliament. It can be introduced in either house of the parliament. Okay, same thing. Private member here, also private member. First reading, second reading, third reading. That will also be this one. What if there's a deadlock between the 2 houses? This is a good point. What if there is a deadlock between the 2 houses? What will be the difference? Do we have joint sitting in the states?
No.
We don't have joint sitting in the states. So what happens?
Legislative Council has more.
Legislative Council has more? Please go ahead.
Legislative Assembly is having more power than the Legislative Council. So decision of the Legislative Assembly will override the decision of the Legislative Council.
So Legislative Assembly will get its way, okay, or exact terms that you used, okay, overriding. Is this right? So remember, the constitution does not provide for a mechanism of joint sitting of the two houses. Okay, when the state legislature has the upper house and the lower house, whenever you have some sort of a deadlock that takes place. But that does not mean there is no deadlock. Deadlock can take place if you have both the houses. Now here, what we say as 6 months in your state, the 20%, the difference is that it is 3 months here. So remember, in the state, it is 3 months. In the center, it is going to be 6 months. Okay, the Rajya Sabha has power to sort of think about it and take a call, and it has 6 months to do so. But the State Legislative Council has only 3 months. Okay, only 3 months to sort of pass the bill. Okay, is that clear? Now, the Constitution provides for the mechanism of joint sitting. Here, the Constitution does not provide for the mechanism of joint sitting. Can the Lok Sabha override the Rajya Sabha by passing the bill again for the second time? No, it cannot. The only way you can resolve a dispute between the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha is in what way? A joint sitting. Only way is your joint sitting. However, when it comes to your legislature, state legislature, right? The Constitution obviously does not provide for anything like a joint sitting, right? So the Legislative Assembly can override the Legislative Council by passing the bill for the second time. So pass it second time. You can pass it the second time. And what happens? So when a bill is passed by the Assembly for the second time and transmitted to the Legislative Council, do they, how much time do they have?
1 month.
They have 1 month. Okay, so net, okay, great, Aishwarya. Net, what do they have? The power of the Legislative Council is in the first instance, okay, you have 3 months, plus in the second instance, you have 1 month. So the max you can do is sort of delay a particular sort of a bill, right, by 3 months, and that is all the power that you have. Okay, but in Rajya Sabha, in the center, you have it working in a different manner, right? In the Rajya Sabha, you have it in a different manner. You will go with a joint sitting, and that is the only way to sort of resolve this. Here, in the first instance, you have 3 months. Okay, and if you're not able to resolve this, if the Legislative Assembly is going to pass it again, then you get 1 more month max. But then it is considered to be or deemed to have been passed by both the houses in the form that was passed by the Legislative Assembly. Does that make sense? Do you want me to repeat this part again? This is the major difference, and generally you will see a lot of questions that are based on this. Okay, because this is sort of tricky. It is sort of tricky. I'll just give you like some 10 seconds to sort of let it sink in. If you want me to repeat it again, perfect, no issues at all, I will repeat it. Okay, great. Now, do you guys remember when we were talking about joint sitting, I underlined the word can. The president can call for a joint sitting. Why did I highlight can? What if the president does not call for a joint sitting? The bill ends there. In the center, if the president does not call for a joint sitting, the bill ends there. So another sort of a technicality. Does that make sense? Is that clear? So the president has an option of sort of summoning for a joint sitting, but if it is he does not do so or she does not do so, then what happens? The bill ends there and becomes dead. Clear? Okay, now let me introduce another sort of a scenario, and this is in the state this time. Let us say, let's take the example of Karnataka. Right, in Karnataka, we said that we have upper house as well. What if the upper house, the Legislative Council passes a bill, okay, and then they have passed it, okay, again, they go through the entire thing, okay, multiple hoops, first round, second round, third round, all the readings are done, passed. Now it goes to the Legislative Assembly, okay, House of the People. What are the options that the House of the People have, the Legislative Assembly has? What if the Legislative Assembly is not okay with that bill that the Legislative Council has sort of sent? Just to sort of make it clear in your mind, what did we say? We said House 1, House 2, right? Legislative Council Okay, and then you have your legislative assembly, and then you have your governor. Okay, and if it is passed in this particular manner, great. But what if the legislative council is passed? Okay, but however, once it is transmitted to the legislative assembly is not okay with this. What happens now? What happens now is that if the legislative council is passed, does not matter. If the legislative assembly rejects something that has originated in your legislative council, the bill ends. Okay, and is considered dead. Now let's go back to when I said Rajya Sabha in the center vis-a-vis legislative council in the state. Which one is more powerful? When a Rajya Sabha passes a particular bill, it is sent to the Lok Sabha. Okay, if they reject it, it does not mean that the bill ends. Rajya Sabha has power, right? It is going to go for a joint sitting possibly. Okay, in ordinary bills, they have equal sort of power. However, in the states, you notice that the legislative council does not have much of a power. Even if they sort of draft a particular bill and then they pass it after stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and the legislative assembly is like, we're not bothered. Okay, we are rejecting it. The bill ends. All the work of legislative council is not even going to count. So in that way, legislative assembly vis-a-vis legislative council has been given more power rather than, your legislative, your Lok Sabha vis-a-vis your Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha has a lot more power in comparison to your legislative council in the state. Is that clear? Or do you want me to repeat it? I think I'm mentioning a lot of new things. Just take some time. Let it sort of sink in. In fact, I'm not going to ask you. I'm just going to repeat this once again. In the center, what happens is, let's say Rajya Sabha passes a particular ordinary bill, and then it goes to the Lok Sabha. If the Lok Sabha is not okay with this, okay, it does not mean that the bill ends. What will it mean? It means that, possibly if there is a deadlock or something, it will go to a joint sitting. However, in the state, if a legislative council is the one drafting a particular bill and it goes to the legislative assembly, okay, and the legislative assembly says no, that means it is done. There is no option before the legislative council. The bill ends here and it is considered dead. So even for an ordinary bill in the state legislature, in those state legislatures that have an upper house, the upper house is sort of weak. It does not have much of a power. Does that make sense? And one of the reasons is that Rajya Sabha has to be given more power because it is a representation of the states, right? It is the representation of the states. But your legislative council is not any representation of the state. It is not about federalism. It is not about, the states' rights or the states' voices, right? It is nothing of that sort. So the idea is that the legislative council in the state should not be sort of, impeding the activities of the legislative assembly. The legislative assembly should get its way because it is a popularly elected sort of a body. Popularly elected means it is elected by the people themselves, right? By the people themselves. Now, again, if you compare it with other countries, you will notice in Britain, for instance, your upper house of the House of Lords, okay, unlike our Rajya Sabha, they don't even have the power to obstruct the House of Commons. If there is a money bill, even if there is an ordinary bill that is passed by, let us say, the Lok Sabha, their Lok Sabha, House of Commons, the House of Lords or the Rajya Sabha, their Rajya Sabha, the most they can do is sort of delay it by a certain amount of time. If it's an ordinary bill, 1 year you can delay it. Okay, you cannot do anything. There's no, like that. Okay, and similarly, if it's a money bill, it is going to be 1 month. Okay, so I hope that is sort of clear. And similarly, the upper houses in many different sort of countries will have different systems. They will have different systems. Is this clear? Okay. Now, with regard to your money bills, the process is very, very similar in the center and the state. In the center and the state. What is the number of days by which it has to go from your upper house to your lower house once the lower house passes it?
14 days.
14 days for center. And what about in state legislature? It's the same. Okay, money bill may, it is the same. Okay, remember that. Okay, in money bill, it is the same. So 14 days for your legislative council by which you have to send it back. Okay, or even if you don't send it, you guys know what happens, right? The Lok Sabha or the Legislative Assembly, they can accept any of the recommendations. Okay, and even if they do not accept any of the recommendations, the bill is then deemed to have been passed, in the original form if they don't accept those amendments. But if they've accepted those amendments, then it is considered to be deemed to have been passed in the modified form. Okay, it is considered to have been passed in the modified form. Okay, and remember 14 days. If the Rajya Sabha does not return the bill to the Lok Sabha back in 14 days, the bill is again considered to have been passed, at the end of the 14th day. And same thing goes in your state as well. Same thing goes in your state as well.